People of this planet. Uh, I am unfortunately residing in the belly of the beast that is the United States of America, and we all know what I'm talking about with the beast. They call it in the book of Revelations, Babylon, um, the the great whore. Apologies for any scriptural scholars that exist out there if I am butchering any sort of scholastic understanding of the Bible and biblical lore, of course. But just people are through these kinds of videos just trying in this sort of, I don't even know what to call this, just vlog, I guess, just like vlog diary style, sort of dash cam style thing, but they're doing it from a garage or just bedroom or just a living room, or they'll just be walking around in public or something and they're like the fresh air spur of the moment. Made me think of just something to talk about. But you see in these kinds of videos that everyone is, rather than really trying to examine what's going on with why people are entering just general states of depression, mental illness, exhaustion, anger, bitterness, hopelessness. Like, and I'm speaking again from the perspective of someone who is living under the occupation of the United States of America. From people listening outside of the country, as well as delusional people that are living within this country, you do not have actual freedom here. We do not have actual freedom at this point. It should be abundantly clear that the very thin tapestry of democratic processes is just it's useless at this point. We saw in the last election, like our choices have been distilled to: do you want the pro corporate takeover of the world and pro genocide party that also wants to display acts of wanton cruelty openly by defunding social services and funding ICE? Or do you want the other party that is the ultra pro corporatist, the party that started the genocide that Pisrael is conducting, the Israeli occupation forces are conducting on the Palestinian people? And also, yeah, we're funding ICE too, but we're going to be hush hush about it because they basically the number of deportations, if you want to look at just like the raw data, it is almost equitable between Republicans and Democrats. They are both pro genocide, pro slavery through the prison industrial complex and general financial debt peonage that they put people in, pro slavery, pro genocide parties. And I say that word, and it's like, oh no, we can't be, we're gonna have to take your video down. And it's just like, man, like, how, as a institution, let alone as a human being, how do you feel justified in wanting to remove a word because it is an accurate description of an event going on in West Asia right now, as defined by every legitimate international institution? If the rule of law was actually a thing. But it's just people are just getting their eyes ripped open Clockwork Orange style of it was never really about justice and trying to create a genuine order of peace and stability around the world. It's at the behest of enriching the United States of America and its vassal states, which includes Israel. And Pisrael is, make no mistake here, if you live in the United States of America, this is not the everything that's going on over there that is just psychologically traumatizing the entire human race. That is 100% the United States of America's fault. It's the only reason that that entity, that colonial entity, exists over there. So many of the just wretches that live in that settler colony have dual citizenships with the United States, and definitely dual citizenships with plenty of countries throughout Europe. And it's just 100% a colonial project to ensure U.S. domination in the region. And is there a little bit of animosity that occurs to a certain extent between the U.S. government and Israel? Sure. On very minute issues of essentially the U.S. occasionally saying to Israel, I think you killed too many people this time. You better stop it. Going back to like Reagan with the essentially like Palestinian refugee camp massacres by the right-wing Christian phalangists. I please forgive me if I'm butchering the pronunciation. It's the Sabrila and Shatil Palestinian refugee camp massacres that the Lebanese army and of course the Israeli occupation forces helped perpetrate that slaughter, that massacre as well. Just honestly, it is unavoidable if you read on the history of the settler colony known as Israel. If you read Der Judenstaat and Ott Neuland by Theodor Herzl, he explicitly makes it clear in that book, he's the founder of political Zionism, that it is a settler colonial project. He also explicitly included that in the letter to Cecil Rhodes. David Ben-Gurion, David Grun, because he came up with that fake Hebrew bullshit to make it seem like his Polish ass came from there. He did not. Grun was his last name. And he said that, just objectively speaking, just doing his pragmatic political analysis of the situation, because he was at the end of the day, a ruthless secularist that tried to legitimate Jewish supremacy and settler colonialism, ethnic cleansing, and genocide by saying, if I were the local Palestinian population, I think he just called them Arabs, but if I were the Arabs, I would not negotiate with the Jewish settlers. I would not negotiate with the Zionist Jewish agency that exists here. I'm heavily paraphrasing, by the way, because we are here to take their land. And our God is not their God. Our God told us that he gave us the land, he wrote cynically. He didn't actually believe in any of that shit. Theodore Herzl was also an atheist. It was just the conception of the Jewish race that started coming about with the sort of like a reflex response to rising nationalism, and as a within Europe, and how um, that was sort of developing as everyone's becoming conscious of certain ethnic characteristics. Sort of a byproduct of just the shitty Enlightenment concepts that were arising at the time. Not everything was bad from the Enlightenment, but Jesus Christ, there were a lot of terrible things that came from it too. And I guess maybe the Industrial Revolution consolidating nation states helped with developing nationalism too. But what I'm trying to say is that Jewishness as a race was not conceptualized until the mid 19th century. As a religion, as a shared tradition, it existed for centuries. Absolutely. But Zionism came about as a result of secular tendencies that would also be admitted by the founder of political Zionism, Theodore Herzl, as well as the founder of the state of I don't want to call him the state, the occupation entity, the founder of the occupation entity, David Grun, David Ben Gurion. They were both secularists, utilized that cynically, and they knew that they saying that their God was a justification that would not align with the Palestinians. And that there would be resistance. But that's what they're counting on, because that's what they do. They poke and prod at you. They start wailing on you, and then you're just like, you shove them away, like, stop it. And then they proceed to murder you, slit your throat, throw your babies in ovens. Just look up Deir Yassin massacre. And just an absolutely ruthless people that are receiving the full support of the U.S. government. We are trapped within the occupation that exists in this country. They have built up the infrastructure quietly. You know why they push stuff like anti-immigration, and it's why people that just are so like if you're a racist, you are actually just acting against your own self-interest at this point. Because what happens, they build up the infrastructure, both within baby killers in the U.S. military and pigs within the U.S. law enforcement at the federal, state, and local level. By the way, this is not a LE or military-friendly stream that's coming in. I know so many people here slavishly devoted to murdering people and destroying their lives at home and abroad, but we're not here. If you are a part of those entities, as a human being, I can understand you. If you're willing to take off the uniform and make amends, we're allowed to make mistakes, and as long as you haven't done anything that's totally unforgivable, there's still a chance of redemption. But while you're in the function of a enforcer and murderer, I don't like you. You're the enemy. You are holding us down. We are occupied within the United States of America. We have police forces that are funded to the tune of billions of dollars in cities. This is more than entire nations even have for like their GDPs, let alone spend on their militaries, which for the US, like, the military is just robbing what little is left of the social safety net at this point too. Just so that they can enrich people, are essentially just scooping off like fraudulent government contracts that are being sent to the military pretending to be consultants or advisors attached to certain transactions so that they can just haul off massive pieces of the U.S. taxpayer pie that we're forced to pay or we get arrested. And we're trying to pretend that we voluntarily participate in this society that says you'll get arrested if you don't help fund our ability to conduct genocide at home and abroad. We have cop cities here. There's one that's getting built outside Atlanta. We have the U.S. military occupying LA right now, along with ICE just brazenly running around. Shouts out to all of the spontaneous community defense that sprung up resisting ICE at this point. I mean, what? Just people that. What I'm trying to say with that whole apparatus that people just glaze unconsciously within the US without stopping to think for a second, maybe they're not fighting to protect your personal freedom and fighting for justice. These people are here to maintain the control of a coercive cabal, syndicate, cartel, oligarchy, whatever word you want to use, of uh, high level military and intelligence people, people deeply embedded within the US bureaucracy, people that are major multinational corporation board of directors types, people that are managers of the massive financial institutions that provide the capital to those corporations that build out the commodities, and then a whole suite of international capital that's coming from abroad that gets their little tendies in the mixture of the capital that essentially runs U.S. society. If people don't think that this place isn't being occupied by essentially U.S. and international finance capital, while an organization like APAC is allowed to openly operate and exist, you are delusional and you need to wake up now, because you keep, honestly, all of the bitching and moaning that people have done about, oh, but I know my rights. I got my toolie on me to, if they step 1 inch closer to my front lawn that I had to mortgage 3 times just to be able to eat breakfast today, um I'm blowing them away. And it's like, well, the time is now. The time was a while back, honestly. Back during when the George Floyd and Black Lives Matter protests really started popping off. And please forgive me, people, that because I know that we just live in a hyperreal simulacrum now that makes it difficult to remember all things that have happened in the past. But remember that those protests, and again, please forgive me, it was before George Floyd. Wasn't it like Marcus Brown in a protest in like a suburb of St. Louis or something? Ferguson, Missouri, and I think it was Marcus Brown that was murdered by a police officer. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. If I got that wrong, forgive me. But that's when all of that shit started going. And everything coinciding with COVID after that. And the fact that, the veil had already really been lifted when people realized, oh, we could just, everyone else, even just redneck moron George W. Bush. All presidents before Donald Trump had like a very thin veneer of respectability, of playing the part of the, I am the stoic president. It's just like, no, you were just a bloodthirsty war criminal, enriching bankers off the backs of U.S. taxpayers. Um, Obama did the same by not jailing a single fucking meaningful banker during the um, recovery from the economic recession, global financial crisis, housing crisis of 2008, 2009. We're honestly still living in that recovery. We have to keep essentially the money spigot turned on at all times, just to try to have corporations receive money on the fly in order to basically pump up their stocks for the most part. They're not even really investing in productive capital like machinery or opening up new factories or hiring anybody. They just, now we're just saying, yeah, just buy back your stocks. Let's just keep blowing up this balloon. Let's jacking it up. I hope I don't get censored for that suggestive hand motion. I know how sensitive YouTube is now. But it's just like we're at a point where everything is just so openly corrupt. Crimes against humanity are being celebrated by our government at this point, or they're trying to tamp down on the beyond legitimate outrage that people have about that, about the standards of living precipitously declining here, about how healthcare is a scam, about how inflation has, I believe it was 21% since COVID, and it just is not going down because it's not. And I said this in the last video that I had over a month ago. It has nothing to do with the dollars being printed out by the US government. The US dollar, because of its tethering to Saudi Arabian oil prices, is the standard, the expression of the standard of what is essentially commodity money still. It's just embodied within oil, which is the glue of the international commodity production economy, capitalist commodity production economy that we have around the world. It is the lubricant and the fuel for all of that. It just used to be gold in the past until, we started developing sources of energy utilizing steam. And eventually we stuck with gold even when coal was a thing, just because it was a little less liquid, pun intended, than oil. I'm speaking liquid from the financial sense. And us having that relationship with Saudi Arabia low key makes Saudi Arabia secretly, not even that secretly, they're basically America's foundational ally, because they help peg the US dollar's value as the world reserve currency. And you know why the US why it destroyed the country of Iraq in its illegal and disgusting invasion that we've tried to memory hole, but is just as terrible of a crime against humanity as 1 million Iraqis perished under U.S. occupation, as the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian people. they're both. You could say that what's going on now is worse, regardless of the body count being higher in Iraq, but the similarities are striking. They're just both horrible. And the U.S.'s occupation, I mean, Jesus, I mean, they're honestly both just so horrible to comprehend that I don't think you could fault anybody for saying, oh, this is worse than the other. They both should have never happened, is the fucking point. They're both just disgusting wastes of human life, out of sheer greed, as well as getting bossed around by the APAC lobby, are the only reason this genocide and the genocide in Iraq occurred. Um, but you know why, on top of Israel being the boss, that the U.S. committed that crime in Iraq and has constantly been trying to coup and sanction Venezuela, and has been, now we're just bombing Iran outside of the horrible economic sanctions, debilitating economic sanctions the U.S. has levied against Iran and its oil, as well as denying even like medicine imports of certain varieties into their country. Sounds familiar? It's basically occupied Palestine light, where except mothers there can't even get baby formula. It's just too horrible to really like comprehend exactly how messed up things in Gaza and West Bank. Do not forget about what's going on in West Bank, but what's going on in West Bank, just the whole region. I mean, now Qatar is getting bombed. Yemen has been in a state of famine for like 10 years because of the U.S. backed Saudi war against Ansar Allah. Shouts out Ansar Allah for being one of the few, along with Iran and Hezbollah, to really stick up for Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Solidarity Comrades, and all people within and outside Palestine just trying to do something about that. But pivoting back to Iran, those sanctions, which, you know, the U.S. levies to punish them for just having oil, but also for actually just having a human conscience and wanting to, fight back against the slaughter that the Zionist horde are swarming the Palestinian people with. But the U.S. sanctions their oil, and they just have barrels upon barrels just sitting waiting to be stored that they are able to trade in a limited capacity with China, I believe. But they do that because that would plummet the value of the U.S. dollar, because the oil supply from Venezuela and Iran would saturate the planet. And the U.S. doesn't mind when countries that are a little bit more amenable to U.S. demands, like Brazil, are pumping oil. But Gaza, as I'm sure plenty of people know, has massive offshore reserves of oil. Does it make sense why things like genocide are allowed to occur in this day and age of enlightenment and civil rights? It's because these people just want to make money. They cynically talk about wanting to turn that place into a resort. It's honestly just going to turn into a haven for a bunch of oil companies. They'll set up some shit company towns there with their awful, like, Pisraeli techno, whatever fucking music they listen to, if you could call it that. Just a bunch of beeps and boops. And which... Would you really like want to live on the bones, ashes, and blood of the Palestinian people? Like, don't you think you would just be haunted for the rest of your life. I mean, you must not have a conscience. I hope they are haunted. Uh, but let's just hope it doesn't get to that point and that the Zionist entity falls. But it's all about the money. And unfortunately, this is why we're not seeing, even from countries that we thought would be sympathetic, but everyone, all global governments are just totally captured by the capitalist brain virus of profit at all costs as and generating exchange values through seizing and reselling commodities, seizing resources and repackaging them as commodities for profit, um, refining them as commodities for profit. That is just something that every country is aligned on, even if they kind of are competing imperial powers. But it's why countries like China are not really doing anything. You know where the Belt and Road Initiative was going to go, and it was partnered with Israel on? It was going to go through Haifa. It was going to go through the port of Haifa there, which would, because that is an area controlled by the Israeli government, and Israel and China is the second largest trading partner of Israel, unfortunately. So it had a working relationship, still does, on some level, have a working relationship with the illegitimate Israeli occupation. But the Belt and Road Initiative of their global logistical network, supply chain, and industrial project is based on its collaboration and cooperation with a genocidal entity. It's all about the money. It's just all about the money. And you need to understand that there isn't a democracy to save anywhere at this point. What needs to be done in order to fight back, you can't vote your way out of this. There's no way to vote your way out. We have to begin to form genuine grassroots solidarity with each other. At a time where we have never felt more isolated, alone, broken, disconnected, disillusioned, alienated from everyone and everything around us, we are being forced into the task of having to fight back against a totalizing aforementioned cabal of billionaires from various private and public sectors of global capital that exist, and the enforcement mechanisms such as militaries and police that and intelligence agencies that enforce that world order. That's something that we are going to have to figure out how to do by ourselves. And in the US, we're trying, and it will look pathetic to anyone else. I think I brought this up in the last little video I had here, but we don't have a choice that we're going to have to just leave. People that are even remotely amenable to the left. But honestly, everyone in every party, I don't care about your political affiliation. You need to leave the Republican and Democratic parties, and you need to start doing stuff with people around you. Now, we have a nucleus of that. If you could be amenable to their ideas on wanting to build a society that actually tries on some level to create some sort of recognition that, yeah, if you work in the United States of America, you should be able to afford a half decent life for yourself. And maybe that's simplifying it too much, but if you look at the disparity between our nominal wages, which will occasionally notch up once in a while, and our real wages based on the actual productivity of our labor, you'll see that the disparity is insane. And on top of genuine inflation that is occurring with commodity prices, even though our labor productivity should be driving insane levels of profitability for the capitalist class, even though we have higher labor productivity and those commodities should be cheaper, they raise the price. Now they're just saying, we're not even going to give you enough to, as a class, to you labor stooges, you working stooges, to be able to continue to make us more money. So they're entering the self-destructive cycle of just impoverishing their means of wealth, the exploitation of our labor, to destroy themselves. And we're in a period of economic decay now that everyone is seeing the veil lifted from the sham that is just the U.S. Occupation of the world, essentially. And by the U.S., I don't even mean this country anymore. I just kind of mean the standard of international finance capital. It's really beyond just a single nation state at this point. There are communist countries like the Socialist Republic of Vietnam that are still expressing support for the Zionist occupation. So it's really just a international group of capitalists that we have to fight back against, but that's too abstract an entity. What you do need to fight back against, though, is the essentially U.S. capitalist government if you live within your country. National liberation movements need to occur within countries that are being occupied by imperialist powers like the United States. And proletarian, aka working class, organizing and revolts and work shutdowns against the U.S. multinational capitalist base's ability to, since industry has been shuttered in the U.S. so heavily, at least some kind of like just disruption to their transfer of capital throughout the U.S. needs to occur. We need to disrupt supply chains of goods flowing. We need to disrupt assembly plants. We need to disrupt financial institutions processing critical amounts of capital. And what that resistance looks like at this point, I'm not really sure. But all roads of resistance in the U.S., as the just very small but crystallized point right now that exists, is to join the DSA. And I almost want to say regardless of political affiliation, but you need to be at least somewhat amenable to leftism. I know at their recent party conference in Chicago that on the leadership committee, they now have members of the Marxist Unity group that have taken over, I believe, a majority, but at least a few seats. And they are seriously talking about running political candidates soon in elections, because finally we have something that is truly breaking away from the Democratic Party. The Green Party has that on some level, but we need a party for us. And this needs to happen everywhere. This is happening still in bourgeois democracies that exist in the settler colonies of Canada and Australia. And it still occurs all throughout Europe. At least there are the political landscape and conversation that's allowed in those countries is a little bit more open to, unfortunately, like more progressive pseudo leftism, but no, mass popular movements need to be happening there. Wow, I just am jumbling words together. I have been talking for over 40 minutes, so apologies, of course, folks. But this is more just kind of like, you don't need to see my hideous mug. You can just drift off to the sound of someone trying to pull together the threads of what's going on. So let me try to bring it home relatively quick because, yes, DSA is something that can exist as a starting point that we can begin to work out of. And it sucks that it seems like everything's falling apart, and that's what we get to celebrate is, hey, we're gonna potentially finally have a legitimate third party again for the first time in over 100 years in the U.S. Because sorry, the Libertarian Party is just funded by corporate elites as well. Ross Perot was a corporate elite for his third party reform party run. What are you reforming? You paying less taxes? That's basically what it was. But that's just where we're at, and it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to feel hopeless, but what choice do we have? The main thing that we can do, you got to give up on the myth of the American dream. It never existed. It was built on a pile of, at this point, at least tens of millions. We're maybe getting to hundreds of millions of bodies if we're talking about U.S. Collaborationist death squads and terrorist states that have worked with the United States. But well, we'll hold it at tens of millions of people. And you just need to grow up and accept that, hey, you're living under an empire that is now turning its colonial enforcement apparatus at home, and you can either continue to be slavishly devoted to it or accept that you, as well as every person around you, deserves to have an existence of basic dignity and respect where they don't have to worry about getting snatched because of their skin color or dying because of their skin color or violated because of their gender or harassed because of their gender or being able to go to work and knowing that it's actually going to be worth it and that they can afford basic utilities and housing. We're not asking for a lot here. And food, you want to know that you're going to be secure in that. And you just want to feel like that what you're doing is actually going to amount to something rather than just making money for increasingly more detached and depraved ultra wealthy people who don't even seem like they're enjoying it. So please feel free to end capitalism and give some back to us. But I'll leave it at that. Hopefully, I like to keep it at the length of roughly like a meditation. Maybe meditate on some crash out dash cam aesthetic Marxist-Leninist coded videos, because lashing out at things like, oh, smartphones did this, or oh, it was all COVID, these are all emanations from a global economic system, which is just a fancy way of saying the way that we interact with each other on the main in the abstract, has been captured by uh, international tech, military intelligence, and bureaucratic and financial elites. And that cannot continue to go on. It is unsustainable. Smartphones are an emanation of capitalism's bread and circuses, keeping us away from the real problems and harping on bullshit complaints that we have about one another that are not relevant and are not the real problem. Um, and then social media. Also, these two devices are your data, as Edward Snowden has revealed, is being sold to intelligence. So they're building profiles to tamp down on future acts of resistance. So you're just giving them like free surveillance and intrusion into your life with those types of things. But there are also ways to generate intelligence for other corporations that will buy their data. Ads are utilized there to help direct certain types of messaging on social media platforms, to regulate user content in a certain direction that they want, aka a right-wing direction, and also to hawk certain products that grease the wheels of the U.S. consumer machine. That is really like the only meaningful good that this economy has, is being a consumer to help developing countries sell their exports at a profitable price. And now that they're impoverishing the consumer base, they don't really have any recourse, and they can't go with universal basic income because they need to keep us distracted from organizing by being forced to work, which I'm doing a lot of, as you can see, now that we're at 47 minutes here. But let me just leave it at that. Just know that just keep going. There are ways that we're going to break through this. We don't need to devolve into hysterics, putting on a performance of fear and doom, because you're just, okay, just give up at that point. But why don't we do a little bit more than that? Why don't we, I don't know, even if we lose, try to fight for something better? Just try. That was a good message from Andor, by the way. Maybe I'll talk about that show in the future. But for now, I'm going to sign off. And thanks for listening to me rant. And hopefully I'll get my shitty Wojak crying communist thumbnail in there. Hopefully that attracts some people too. But thanks for listening in. Give yourself a break, and if you're having trouble trying to figure out what you want to do to try to begin to fight back against this thing, check out DSA. Check out their website, join online, become a small dues paying member. I think you can even get provisional membership if you can't afford dues. It's very open, welcoming, and becoming more and more a principled community as people just see everything cratering around us. So give them a shot if you want to feel like you can do something besides get a form letter back from a congressperson, or just, I don't know, have another argument with a boomer, just, and I use boomer in the sense of just Dunning-Kruger effect type people, not so much the age generation, just kind of the okay boomer crowd. We all know what those kinds of discussions entail. But just, you don't have to scream into the void. It's boring. It'll feel like it's not going anywhere a lot of the time, although I don't think it's that boring. I've done some DSA work, and it's actually, it makes you feel good, even if it doesn't. Not that it doesn't have tangible impact. Uh, it's it's doing stuff. It's not just people getting elected. It's mutual aid. It's organizing within tenant unions. It's just being able to take care of homeless people through organizing for their rights, talking about them, giving them a platform, just actually having genuine democratic input on things that you're voting on. These are skills that have atrophied within Americans' minds, and we got to work those muscles again. I know I've got plenty of work to do on that front, but solidarity, comrades. Signing off. We're gonna have to try to find a way to get through this thing. I'm not saying that we will, but we have to try.